I'm a little tired of subscriptions. Of course, not in the dramatic, but more in the quiet way of watching small monthly charts marching out of my account every month. Not so long ago, the software used to be sold in more one-time formats and used until it actually stopped working. It lives on your machine and did the job offline. Of course, it might not have had every new shining feature, but it helped you get work done, and that was enough. You paid once and nobody emailed you every month asking if you still believe in the product and taking your money just because you have a CD. And now everything is a service, which is another way of saying you only keep it as long you keep us paying. And this video isn't meant to be some kind of guide or instructions or on what to do. It's more like my personal reflection on how subscriptions have become so common and how dependent we've grown on other people's platforms and services. And if that sounds familiar, maybe it's worth thinking about how much control you actually want over your own tools. Subscriptions are everywhere now. Want to watch a film? Pick from 7 platforms and somehow still miss the one movie you wanted. Want to watch all the sports leagues like I? Great, now I need the 3 different subscriptions. Free delivery, join Amazon Prime because paying to avoid paying is apparently normal now. Want to lose weight? Monthly fee. Want to write down my thoughts and keep them synced across the devices? Monthly fee. Want to store data? Want to read the news? Make the subscriptions again. Work is no better. Basecamp, Toggle, GitHub, Bitbucket, Google Workspace, Figma, Surfshark. The list keeps growing. And now AI has joined the pile. OpenAI, Claude, Olama and the rest that promise to save time, money and effort. Then quietly take a monthly cut too, even when I might barely use some of them sometimes. And that's an easy hook. If something feels useful, canceling it feels like giving up something important. So you'll keep paying while telling yourself that it is still makes sense. Could you quickly answer how many monthly fees you have? I thought that I had it under control because I only paid for the important things. Then I made a list and the total generally surprised me. If I had to manually approve every charge each month, I would have caught it sooner. But the whole system is built to make that fade into the background. Connect a card and the money starts drifting out of my account in tiny pieces. I'm not pretending that companies invented subscriptions out of the pure evil. Cloud infrastructure costs money, of course. Security updates cost money. Good developers cost money. And managed services are often better than the old software on a disk era. And of course, recurring revenue makes sense if you are the one who collects it. One-time sales are transactions, monthly bills became a habit, and that part is smart. What bothers me more is how easily it is to accept all of this without thinking. I'm often the one who says, oh, it's only $10. I might need it once. I might justify each purchase individually, but together they can have much larger impact on my budget, much larger than I expected. And of course, I don't blame companies for this. Nobody is forcing me to subscribe to 3 different sports services, 2 cloud storage plans, and the app that tells me how many calories I added after eating a banana. The model works because it's easy, and this is also why it gets dangerous. It starts as optional, then it became expected, and then it becomes part of how you work, and that's where the real dependency shows up. This is where AI tools make things interesting. Once something like Cloud becomes part of your daily workflow, it stops feeling like a tool you choose, but starts feeling like a tool you need. And that's a strange place to be. I have already seen developers asking themselves, where was the last time we wrote the code without agent doing half of the thinking? Even as a very experienced developer, I feel awkward when I reach the usage limits and have to do basic research on my own. And that says a lot about dependence. And the recent backslash around the cloud's pricing changes is a good example of what I meant by the dependency. What stood me out wasn't just that people were annoyed, but that many people had already built their entire process around cloud itself. And at this point, the tool isn't just helping you work, but starting to decide when you work, when you can work, and what the bill looks like at the end of the month. And that makes me a little nervous. Not because I think these tools are bad. They're amazing and I use them all the time too. But the provider login can make switching difficult once the workflow depends too much on them. Prices go up, usage changes, features disappear, and suddenly you are paying more on rebuilding your habits from scratch. I'm never going to be fully independent, but I do want the option to move without my whole setup collapsing like a folding chair. So that's the direction I decided to test in practice. I started building a small web app for myself, one place for the parts of my workflow that don't really need to live across 5 different subscriptions: notes, thinking, organization, and AI support, but in a setup that stays flexible enough for me to switch tools, providers, or even local models without rebuilding everything around one company's rules. I don't expect this to solve everything, and for sure I'm not trying to cut every subscription, but what I want to test is whether I can stop paying for the small $5 per month services that quietly add up over time. I want to see what gets easier, what gets worse, and whether having more control is worth the trade-off. I will share the results as I go, what worked, what failed, and what turned out to be harder than I expected. The community is filled with claims like I vibe coded an app and I saved thousands of dollars, but I can't shake the feeling that a lot of this is marketing bait. I'm a web developer creating big things for our clients for more than 11 years, so I want to test whether this can work in my own case. And if that sounds interesting for you, follow along. I have a feeling that the results will be at least as revealing as the experiment itself. So, as I said, if you are feeling interesting about this, just remember to subscribe to my channel. I will post more updates in this time soon. Thank you for your time today and see you next time. Bye bye.